My fiancée forced my parents out of my house by claiming she was the new owner. So, I ended things. I'm 29. I always cherished the old house where I grew up. Small, a bit worn, but full of memories. I inherited it from my grandparents. My parents lived there comfortably, and I never intended to sell it. Even after I moved out and got engaged, I told my fiancée, Jill, the house wasn't for sale. So when she initially seemed disinterested in my old family home, acting like it was beneath her notice, I actually felt relieved. I should have known better. One Monday afternoon, my father called in a panic. "Son, something strange is happening. A lawyer emailed us an eviction notice on your fiancé's behalf." I nearly dropped my phone. My fiancée. Why would she involve an attorney to evict my parents from my own property? My father forwarded me the documents. They stated my fiancée was the new owner and demanded my parents vacate within 30 days. My name was nowhere on that form. It was as if she'd decided unilaterally that the house belonged to her. Shaken, I tried calling her immediately. She didn't pick up. I texted. No response. Confusion mingled with a rising anger that made my stomach churn. That evening when she finally came home, I confronted her. "What is this about an eviction notice for my parents?" She stared at me, momentarily speechless. Then she recovered, trying to appear casual. "Oh, that? I was going to talk to you about it. My sister needs a place to stay. Somewhere big enough for her and her kids. I figured your parents could find an apartment, and we could let my sister move in instead." I felt my hands shake. "Are you kidding? That house is still in my name. You have zero right to evict my parents." She waved her hand dismissively. "We're engaged. We'll be married soon. That means I'll have a say in your properties. Why can't your parents just live somewhere else?" The entitlement took my breath away. She was acting like I'd signed the deed to her, and her calm assumption that my parents' comfort meant nothing to me infuriated me. I demanded she rescind the notice. She shrugged. "Look, I'm just trying to be practical. My sister's house sold unexpectedly. She's in a pinch, and we have an extra property. Your parents can downsize easily." My rage flared. "Downsize? They've been there for decades. You can't toss them aside like old furniture." Her voice turned chilly. "Why are you being so dramatic? I'm your future wife, and I want my family cared for. If your parents can't handle a move, that's their problem." She then admitted she'd already worked something out with a lawyer friend, forging documents to claim partial ownership, banking on the assumption that once married, she'd have rights. She seemed convinced I'd just roll with her scheme. My mind reeled at the betrayal. "So you tried to evict my parents behind my back to house your sister? Without telling me?" She didn't even blink. "Yes, because I knew you'd overreact, and my sister's situation is urgent. Don't blow this out of proportion." I stared at her, stunned that she could be so arrogant. It was my name on that deed, and she was orchestrating an entire eviction process like it was a small favor. Right then, I sensed the enormous rift between us, a glimpse of how controlling she could be. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs with Jill long before the house incident. She had a pattern of treating my finances like her personal ATM. Early in our relationship, she'd surprise me with expensive dinner reservations at high-end restaurants. Then, conveniently forget her wallet. She'd book lavish weekend getaways without consulting me, assuming I'd cover everything. Once, she even gave her cousin $5,000 from my account for a business opportunity, which turned out to be a pyramid scheme. When I confronted her, she dismissed it as helping family. Another time, she maxed out my credit card buying designer bags, claiming she needed them to look professional at her job. The spending was constant, but I kept making excuses for her. But this was the last straw. This was my parents' home, and she'd launched a secret plan to boot them out. Furious, I told her I'd have my attorney look into these so-called documents. Her reaction was a dismissive snort, as if I was being childish. "Go ahead," she said. "You'll see that, once we marry, the house is effectively ours, not just yours." I reminded her we weren't married yet, and that even after a wedding, Property law doesn't automatically sign over a pre-owned house to a spouse. She rolled her eyes, probably never expecting me to push back this hard. I spent the next day consulting a lawyer friend. He was aghast at her nerve. He confirmed the house was mine alone, my name on the deed, purchased long before the engagement. He said her so-called eviction papers had no legal basis. They were likely just intimidation, hoping my parents would flee in confusion. Worse yet, she tried forging her ownership claims. The lawyer said this could be considered attempted fraud if she proceeded in court. I immediately told my parents to ignore any eviction notices, to stay put. They were relieved. They'd been anxious and hurt, unable to fathom why my fiancée had turned so hostile. My father kept asking, "Are you sure you want to marry someone who'd do this to us?" I had no reassuring answer. The more I thought about it, the more I realized her sense of entitlement was beyond repair. That evening, I confronted her again. I laid out the facts. My lawyer says you have no leg to stand on. If you push this, you risk legal trouble. She shrugged, unrepentant. Why make this a big deal? Just do what's best for my sister. Your parents can find somewhere else. Or, you can rent them an apartment, right? My jaw clenched. The audacity was staggering. She truly believed my parents were disposable. No, that's not happening. Why do you care more about your sister's convenience than my parents' well-being? She retorted. Because my sister's family is expanding, she needs space. Your parents are just old. They don't need that big place. Her cold words ignited anger in my chest. That's their home. Age or size is irrelevant. You're crossing a line. I won't let you treat them like obstacles. She scoffed. Fine. Let's see if you feel the same after we're married. She clearly assumed I'd ultimately fold. I glared at her, realizing all at once this wasn't just a spat. This was a fundamental clash of values. She'd do anything to serve her own family's interest, even if it meant displacing mine. Disgust roiled in my gut. Maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all, I muttered. She froze. What did you say? I met her gaze, heart pounding. I'm calling off the engagement. Her eyes widened in shock, and then fury. You wouldn't dare. You'll lose me. She tried flipping the script, painting herself as a victim. I can't believe you'd abandon me over a misunderstanding, she wailed. I'm just trying to help my sister. Doesn't that show my big heart? A big heart. I almost laughed at the twisted logic. Evicting my parents in secret did not help. I told her so, voiced trembling with anger. A big heart? More like a big ego. You think you can just reorder my life to suit your sister's needs? Realizing I was dead serious, she switched tactics, pleading with me. We don't have to go through with the eviction. Let's just talk this out. But the damage was done. I saw how she was willing to lie, manipulate, and steamroll my parents to get what she wanted. That was a massive betrayal. Talk it out? I repeated. After you tried to remove my parents from their home behind my back? She tried tears. I made a mistake. I thought you'd understand once I explained. My jaw set. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door, not forging legal documents to evict family. Her tears turned to frustration. Fine, be stubborn. You'll regret losing me over some worthless old house. My blood boiled. Worthless? That house is my childhood home, and it's where my parents still live. They built their life there. You think it's worthless? Then we're definitely done. After a tense pause, I repeated firmly. The engagement is off. I'm calling my parents, telling them everything is safe, and you're out of the picture. She choked back a sob, then stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I grabbed my keys, stepping outside into the cool night air to clear my head. My phone buzzed repeatedly, her texts flipping between apologies and insults. She threatened to smear me to her family, to claim I led her on financially. I was done being intimidated. The next day, I packed her belongings from my place into boxes. When she returned, I pointed to them near the door. Take these. Leave my keys. She glowered, tears streaking her face, but complied. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I'll make sure your name is mud in my sister's circle." I shrugged. "Do what you want. The truth is on my side." She tried one last time to coax me, claiming she'd call off the eviction, but trust was shattered. I told her to keep her false apology. Meanwhile, I texted my father all the details, reassuring him I had no part in that eviction nonsense. He thanked me, relieved to hear I'd parted ways with her. My mother's quiet sadness turned to relief once she realized we'd be free of my fiancé's manipulative presence. As expected, she launched some dirty tricks. She tried telling mutual acquaintances that I'd promised her the house as a wedding gift, painting me as a liar who reneged. Yet, whenever people pressed for evidence, she had none. They realized it was just an entitled fantasy. Some folks believed her at first, but as soon as they heard my side, they recognized who the real manipulator was. Weeks passed. She sulked around, calling and texting me sporadically. Each time, she tried a new angle. Pity, anger, guilt. She said her sister was desperate for a new place, that I'd ruined her family's plans. My reply stayed the same. "You took it upon yourself to cheat my parents out of their home. That's on you." She never really apologized sincerely, only lamented that I wouldn't cooperate. Eventually, I blocked her number. She showed up once at my job, cornering me in the parking lot. I told her calmly to leave, or I'd call security. She spat, "You're an idiot for losing me," before stomping off. If that was her best attempt at reconciliation, it just confirmed I'd made the right call. My parents, of course, were grateful I'd uncovered the scheme in time. No real legal harm was done, since the eviction notice was bogus. The lawyer my ex hired for the fiasco quietly backed off after learning the truth. My mother shook her head in disbelief. To think she wanted to be part of our family while booting us out. My father just said, "Son, better to find out now than after the wedding." Indeed, their perspective grounded me. I dodged a bullet. Some relatives of hers tried contacting me, saying I overreacted, that I could have talked it out. But how do you talk out a betrayal so big? She literally lied about owning property she had no stake in, forging her way into an eviction process. That's not a small spat. That's a breach of trust. I told them I was done explaining. Eventually, I heard she moved in with her sister's family. Ironically, they probably had to figure out a new living arrangement. Good luck to them. People started telling me she was telling sob stories about being thrown away, but I let them talk. My friends and family, plus the evidence of her bogus papers, spoke for itself. In the end, I stood by my decision. Any doubt I had melted away the day I discovered she forged a path to forcibly evict my parents. She tried entitlements and dirty tricks, but I refused to budge. The revenge, if you can call it that, was simply removing her from my life. I cut her off, watched her scramble as her plan collapsed. She faced the consequences of her own arrogance. Now, I'm moving forward without a fiancé, but with my dignity and family safe. My parents remain in the old house, as they should, unafraid of sham eviction notices. And me? I'm more cautious about who I let into my life. The heartbreak stings, but the relief of escaping that manipulative mess outweighs it.